And here we are. Oh my god, last time we did this, we were doing that Adam West review that nobody ever saw.
Actually, it's up on our site.
Oh, then somebody has seen it. Fantastic.
Yes,
Okay, so here we are at night with lots of shadow, and we are talking about Infinity War.
that's right.
This will be our spoiler free review.
Yep. So the two of us have seen the new Marvel.
Actually, maybe we should let people know who the two of us are.
Yes,
'Cause
actually, that would be probably a good idea first.
My name is Woody Arnold. I'm a comic book creator, writer, and I do some art stuff. And then I have my partner in crime over here.
Yep, no carjacking involved. This is Alex Poorman, and I'm also with Miniature Dragons, and I do an assortment of art, Photoshop, cleaning up other people's files and stuff.
Bail us out when it's too much trouble to go back to the artist who didn't do it right
Right.
in the first place.
So big time editing and
Yeah.
from digital to all kinds of
Yeah.
softwares.
Yes. Okay. Well, anyways,
Yes.
that's enough of that. So, the
Stay on
spoil.
topic.
Yes, stay on topic. Spoiler-free review of Infinity War. Maybe a little light spoilery, just to discuss a few things. I love the movie. I think that it's going to be a rare person who didn't.
I definitely feel like for those that are Marvel fans and individuals that have seen all the various movies, this is definitely a great level of payoff. This is basically you were rewarded with watching all their properties basically come to this movie.
Yeah.
This was their hard work actually paying off.
So, I know you and I, we've discussed other Marvel films, right? And like,
Yes.
I like them all. You don't.
Well,
but
there's been
it's-
ones where it's like
It's
not
some,
as heavy.
Some that you like better than others,
Yeah.
right? I think that it would be safe to say that the first Avengers movie was the greatest superhero movie ever made. Like, Age of Ultron was also, good, but it didn't do better. I think it made more money than the first one, but it wasn't a better movie. It was just as good. And for me, that was kind of like, I feel like the first one has more rewatchability, but like, this is clearly the best superhero movie ever made. The Infinity War #1, like undoubtedly.
True, but
Yeah.
definitely it utilizes the full skeleton of what they did.
Yeah.
I mean, you really have to watch. Well, at least in my opinion, you really do get a benefit of like watching all of their other films because it's enough of like, oh, okay, why is this character here? What is this conversation that's going on? All those threads are much more enjoyable because watching all the others.
It's
Though-
not a standalone film. It definitely builds on continuity.
Yes.
But I think if a person was pretty bright and they knew who the characters were, I think you could probably catch on pretty fast what's going on.
It does make
For the
me
most part.
Oh yeah, and it does kind of make me think of like other franchises that have that buildup of various other films under its belt.
Definitely
Like Star Wars, Star Trek.
Definitely not
The-
DC.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I get that they want to try to do something like what Marvel, but I mean, this was really this was a lot of investment.
Yeah.
I mean, going from Iron Man / the Hulk.
Well, so at game night last Friday, we just because people are out of town, and think, like we just, so we ended up canceling the game, and we were talking about seeing Infinity War, which of course nobody's going to get tickets to that at the last minute. But Jeff, immediately talk was like from Jeff and Jake, and everybody's like, wait, we haven't seen Black Panther yet. It's like, what the hell? But so everybody, pretty much except for me and Tommy, went off to see Black Panther that night, which is interesting. It's still in theaters, which is like that thing's still making money, which is crazy on its first run. So it's like, it'd be interesting. I should probably check to see how much money it's made. But
And I gotta say, it's like it was actually a really good part of like watching Black Panther.
yeah,
So about a week or two before Infinity War actually came out, I actually saw Black Panther.
really,
And I'm really glad that I did because it was enough where some of the things that were happening within Infinity War, it would have still made sense, but it was like, okay, the things within Black Panther really helps like set part of like the third act.
Yeah, but it's kind of like that was the concern, was that you needed to see Black Panther in order to see this movie, and you really didn't. Like, if you saw Civil War, you're fine. And by the way, I just looked it up. So Black Panther has made $1.335 billion so far, and it's still tracking. It's still making money. Yeah, it's not done making money yet. And apparently, like, I was watching a video today. I think it was by Dorkly, but they were tracking the income and the I can't remember all the statistics, but it's like just opening weekend. It basically blew everybody away. It's like opening weekend made more money for Infinity War than the entire run of Justice League, which is only about 200 million, which is like, I mean, they made a profit, but they, it was not a successful film.
But I mean, I think this really does speak of like that regards of Hollywood fans and studios, media. This is a real example of like the fans actually supporting something that really is just an amazing level of people that had a lot of talent, a lot of discipline. I mean, recalling from the credits, like, I was amazed on the amount of individuals that were responsible for like making this. I mean, there was a huge section that had like for animation, and it was amazing on the regards of like, it had nothing that looked hokey. It had parts that were just like crystal clear within its and it didn't have that kind of feeling like, oh, the studio went, this demographics needs to be here, or this type of thing, because the test audience said, yes, this is the way that it needs to be.
Well, I mean, look at the Hulkbuster. I mean, the Hulkbuster armor is complete CGI, and they look good.
Yeah.
And by the way, okay, so $353 million is what they're stating the budget is, right? Which means they probably spent double that factoring in marketing. God, everybody in the planet knew about this, unless you were living in a jungle, and even they probably knew.
Even Wakanda.
Right. $808.4 million so far, and in 1 week.
Wow.
Well, I mean, a week and a half.
But right, yeah. But I mean, this really does say of like, this is going to be something for DC to basically listen to. I mean, they
ain't learning shit.
That's a complete mistake. If they do that, they're definitely mistaken, because it's like, this is the type of thing that does change things. I mean, if, there's so many movies out there that have basically like, okay, half-assed on what the original material was, like it or not, there are people where it's like, oh, I don't like the Michael Bay films because it's just basically explosion after explosion. For the people that like it, great, whatever. But I have to say, it's like, okay, the world has given him $1 billion to keep on producing the films that he does. But, if Marvel can just basically make this heavy quality type of film, and if fans are just willing to give them money, this definitely speaks. And if other people say like, no, I don't want to see this this other junk, like
according to this, by the way, I just looked this up, there's about 19 films in the MCU. I'm hoping that this is up to date, since it's probably includes Infinity War. So 20, when you consider that Infinity War is coming out next year, part 2, and also, or whatever the hell they're going to call it, and then we also have Ant-Man. Ant-Man, so that makes it 21.
I know that there's it definitely feels like there's a reason why they are not saying the new title for the part 2.
I hope there's a good reason, but
anyway, at least what I understand is that for anyone that's a fan of Marvel, it will totally be a spoiler.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah. But the thing is like if it just, and I'm gonna like, I just put an end to the DC discussion, but like, DC failed because they do not have 18 films leading up to,
right. I mean,
up to Justice League. They had like 3, and and Marvel had 18, and that's continuity. It's a foundation. But we need to talk about the movie.
True.
And we're talking about everything but the movie,
Yes.
except for how much money it's making. So I want to do a little bit of pros and cons here, right? So
Okay.
right off the bat, I had a negative.
Which was?
That kind of killed a little bit of it for me, but it like, it kind of like it was bothered me throughout the whole movie, but I still kept going. So basically, I don't think this is a spoiler, right? But the movie does begin with Thor, okay, and what happened with him. Now we know if you saw Thor Ragnarok and you stuck around for the post-credit scenes, which if you didn't, what the hell? But because there's already half the theater always clears out,
Right.
But so we already know that their little ship meets a bigger ship, and it's Thanos' ship, and he's gonna go mess some shit up.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the first thing you see is dead Asgardians, and Thor's laying on the ground. Loki's been completely put in his place, and then there's a couple other things which happened which I'm not going to spoil.
Right.
But like,
and I mean, you're almost verging on spoiler territory.
But, it's.
I mean, like that milk is about to get spoiled.
Yeah.
There.
Well, I'm not going to say any more, right? But then like we already knew that's where the movie begins because like in the first 15 minutes you got to address that, and so we see it right out of the gate, and like it had been known for some time that. And this is even before the trailers that Thor was going to hook up with the Guardians because they hit him in space, right? Like that's been a known thing for some time, even before the movie came out. It's like one of the details they released. So like, so for me, like one of my issues with what's been happening with alien movies, with the new ones, is like, okay, so you have this whole thing with Prometheus, these people on the planet, they have their little, they're fighting against monsters, everybody gets killed except for like 2 people, right? And then they take off, and then you find out in the next movie that Shaw is basically just murdered by David and is used as part of an experiment. She died suffering in pain, transformed into a monster, and like he basically used her to create the aliens. It's like, what was the point? It makes the movie completely pointless, right? And that's kind of the way I felt about like Thor. It's like, what the hell was the whole point to Thor Ragnarok if they go to all that effort and all the Asgardians are dead? And they don't show anything other than that, right? But then I was listening to I was getting caught up on the videos I was ignoring for last week because like everybody I listened to in YouTube, the YouTubers listen to was like, yes, Infinity War this, Infinity War that, and and it's just like, okay, I'll get to these things later. And one of them talked about how apparently the director, I forget which one of the Russos said this, but they were asking about, well, what happened, like, basically the same issue I had, and they were talking about at the beginning, and like apparently, like they basically said that some of the civilians got to escape pods, and a character that was there that has a name that we care about got on an escape pod got him out. And it's like, oh, okay, great, but I mean I understand why they didn't show it in the movie because it would have been cool if you saw the escape pods,
right? But I mean,
it's like
but
that,
at the same time there is that part of within a movie culture of
you have to cut the chase.
Well, yeah, but I mean there is still part of that show don't tell,
right? And if they
goes into editing of like
it's
your runtime suddenly becomes 5 hours, and
based on that information you realize that the people that were there were everybody that could basically swing a sword stayed behind to make sure that everybody else got away. And there are other Asgardians in the galaxy. They had the colonies that we've seen in Thor 2,
right.
And there are there is an Asgardian on Earth who's hiding out, from him in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Lady Sif, nobody knows where she is, so she's clearly not involved in this shit. And then Thor lives. I mean, it's like they're not extinct, but their empire is totally destroyed.
Right.
But it's just like that at the beginning frustrated me. And of course, the fact that the people escape should not have been included. Should not be a discussion with the director, because unless it's on film, or in one of the tie-in comics, it's not canonized.
No, I totally get you, and
but that was my only gripe with the movie.
Okay.
Like everything else was just fantastic. Like
I got you, and it wasn't to a point where it kicked you out of the story.
No, but
it was an agitation, but it wasn't a like.
I just wish they hadn't opened up with the one thing that was going to bother me.
Okay.
you know, but the other thing is I've heard a bunch of reviews so far. No, nobody, not one person's mentioned this. Like, apparently, I'm the only one who noticed or cared,
Oh.
which is a shame.
Well, I mean, that's always that thing of if you have a story and if you talk to 12 individuals that were part of that story, you'll get 12 different stories.
And
I mean, granted,
many,
there's a lot of parts that will overlap, but there will be a lot of things where this person will take something out of it.
Many films and TV shows have been based on that premise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Including an interesting episode of Farscape. So did you have any negatives? Is anything that you did not like about the movie?
So pacing wise, I would definitely say in the first act, it felt a little slow and clunky as kind of setup purposes, but it was that understandable level of like enough of setup of, okay, you have all these characters from multiple films, all these individuals that need to basically, if this is your first experience within a Marvel movie, which for some kids, that is.
Yeah, well, it's the classic thing that Stan Lee says is every comic book is somebody's first comic book.
Right, and I get that, and I mean, it's like, it was smart on that part of like, oh, okay, this is enough of like, this isn't my origin of like, I got bitten by a radioactive talk show host and became a, nerd podcast individual, and, here's my dialogue of what we're doing here.
So who bit you?
Yeah.
Well, actually, you kind of reminded me of something because I was listening to, again, you listen to the reviews today.
Right.
There are people that die, obviously, in the movie. We're not going to spoil who that is, but,
right.
we have been known for a while. People were going to get killed. Like, people were crying at some of the death scenes, and I heard that there were talk that, like, children were crying seeing their superheroes die. And
no, I totally get it.
And it was being compared to the death of Optimus Prime,
during the 80s animated film.
The Dorkly video made that comment today. The one I saw was that it was basically compared to the death of Optimus Prime and how, like, in the first 15 minutes of that movie you see all your favorite characters get wasted. And I had that same too. It's like they killed Prowl. I mean, Ironhide is supposed to be the toughest of all the Transformers. Like, it took 2 shots to kill him. It's like.
But that does make me think of, so when I saw it was the Thursday night that was the sneak preview night.
Yeah.
And
I saw it on Tuesday night.
so this was the previous week. Mm-hmm. And it was quite interesting. So the crowd that I was part of, like, there was laughter, there was actual applause during certain parts of the film.
Yeah. In a packed house, I'm sure.
In a packed house. And it was enough of people didn't do the annoying thing of like texting or various other stuff. Actually, people were really good, and it was
I'm sure they were invested in the movie.
It was actually a great experience of like people, cheering, clapping, laughing, you obviously felt the emotion of the room as much as the movie.
Yeah.
People were really invested into it. It did not have that kind of like, and then,
right?
Can you get to the next scene?
Yeah. Well, on the part with like people, like to talk about kids crying and stuff. It was actually the comparison was being, of course, drawn to the Transformers, original Transformers animated film, and one of the things that I was thinking about, and this is definitely on my mind. Particularly with how well made these movies are, because even though they're PG-13, they don't feel like PG-13 movies generally, and this one was definitely what you might call a hard 13 in terms of just what like what they could get away with. But just anyways, like the thing is one of the things that was mentioned as it's like constantly talked about with the Transformers movie was that Hasbro. And, of course, Takara, who, made the toys in Japan, did not have a connection with their fan base the way we do today with the internet. So they didn't know that Optimus Prime was this pop culture icon, right? And it was just not a known thing, and how beloved these characters had become. They just, like, the entire marching order was, clear the slate, we got some more toys coming.
Right. I mean, no, that really does make for quite a different thing.
And the backlash from parents was just staggering. To so much so that in the third season of Transformers, they had to bring Optimus Prime back. And by the end of the series, he was resurrected. But like, a similar effect was had here, though. It for a lot of these people, it's probably going to be a comic book death, and where it's narratively characters are going to come back because you have to fix the Infinity Gauntlet. you have to fix that. It's also based on the comic book story, and if you know comic books, you know how that turned out. But
true, and it's definitely interesting. Like, what a difference this would be like if Marvel actually owned all their properties when it comes to the movie part.
Well, they're about to.
True, but I mean, it's like, what a different film. It's like, the people out there watching this, if you do get a chance, it's like the original comic run, is definitely way different than the movie.
Yeah, but the movie, I think the movies are better than the Infinity Gauntlet.
True.
Because there's no Pip the Troll.
Okay, so I mean, there was some stuff that was done that was definitely for the time period.
Yeah. Well,
works, but
Jim Starlin wanted to make the story about his favorite characters.
True.
But the thing I'm kind of getting at though with this whole mentioning Transformers and just the comparison is like for me as a kid, I remember when I saw that. And Optimus Prime died. I'm like, oh, that sucks. But this is a great movie. I'm having a good time, right? And I was thinking about how, like, for a lot of kids, that was their first introduction to the death of a beloved character. And an entire generation of kids are having that experience right now with Infinity War, right? But for me, it was very different because, somehow, I don't know how, but Space Battleship Yamato and Macross through Robotech ended up on, 7 a.m., on Channel 11, before cable, right? And I was watching these shows, and the freaking body count in those shows, holy shit! Like Gamelons were getting killed in Yamato, which we called Star Blazers, because nobody was going to glorify, at that time, the greatest battleship of World War II that the Japanese had. But it's like, you knew the Gamelons were dead. Like their ships blew up. You know they died. There was one episode where one of the guys literally did a suicide run against the ship, like. No ifs, ands, or buts. Main characters got killed. There was an episode of Yamato where they had so many losses on the ship that they had a space funeral, and you practically couldn't see the ship because of all the funeral caskets on the ship. Right? They were like everybody's out in spacesuits and like they were just having a funeral. And then in Robotech or the Macross series specifically, like one of the main characters, Roy Fokker, he dies. Then you have this other character. I'm not gonna say which one, but he's just this minor character you meet later, who you think is going to be a new main character, and then there's this explosion, and boom, he's dead. They're just racing to get away from the explosion, and he just gets annihilated. And it's like there's no fanfare. There's no like he doesn't go out like a badass. He's just dead, And it's just, it's like I was watching these shows when I was a kid, like 5 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, whatever, and they were produced. I think in Japan they were produced for teenagers and adults. And then, of course, they bring it up. Oh, it's a cartoon. Give it to little kids to watch. But it's like you see these things as a kid, and you're totally enthralled with the science fiction spectacle of it. And then you see these very, mature war themes. And I didn't go out and kill people or burn down houses. I didn't act out because of it. But it's like, the death of Optimus Prime didn't hit me because I'd already seen it when I was 5. Like, it. Okay, so I'm 13 and I see whatever. I can't remember how old I was, but you're like. You're a little kid, you love Transformers, you got everything in your house, and you see your favorite character get wasted, and it's like, oh, okay, great. I'd already seen that. I had already had that plot a dozen times on my favorite shows as a kid. So, it's interesting though that like no television in the United States is not allowed to cover themes like that, where apparently they don't care. They give two shits. Like in Japan, okay, well it's TNA and killing people, and and tentacle porn. But
okay, stay on topic.
Yeah, I know, right?
Let's get back to the film.
No, but like I am. Okay. This is an interesting point because it's like these kids are seeing the death of their beloved characters. They've got the action figures at home. They're wearing the T-shirt,
right?
And then they see, oh my God, my character number 5 that I like, he just got killed, and it's like, wow, But yet, it's interesting the exposure, because like, it's exactly the same thing as the Death of Optimus Prime, and yet, again, from my perspective as a kid, it was nothing because I'd already done that. I'd already seen my main character get killed, my favorite character get killed, and it's like, okay, so I understand life happens, but I kind of wonder if there's going to be any kind of like what parents are going to say, or if there's any backlash to Marvel. You made my kid cry. It would be kind of funny or fun to see if if that happens like it did, in ages past.
Yeah, and I imagine it's like probably this film will get part of that. I mean, without getting into any kind of spoiler territory, it's like there was some like seeing some of the main characters, go through some interesting things, and exactly like you were saying about Optimus Prime, of like. It's like, okay, this is the body the body count, and it's like,
I actually thought it was going to be more brutal though, because again, not getting into spoiler territory, like I really expected, like knowing the characters were going to get killed, it was my assumption that Thanos was literally going to choke the life out of a lot more people, and it was done very cleverly. You don't even really think about it until after the fact. And the way it's actually handled, it could have been a lot more gut wrenching and jarring. Like you're in on the adventure, and even though it has again, don't want to spoil the ending, but basically, it could be very heart wrenching at the end. It could have been, and it is, but it's not as bad. Like. It ends. It's basically Empire Strikes Back. I guess.
Actually, that's like one thing that I could say. It's like
it ends with a glimmer of hope.
Yeah. Well, movie wise, it's like it definitely does have that kind of Empire Strikes Back kind of feel, and without getting into the details of what happens in this film, for those that have watched that film, Empire Strikes Back, you definitely will get like part of the reference as soon as you see this film.
Yeah, no, when the movie's over, the main characters, the ones who are left standing, are in the exact same place that Luke and Leia and Chewie were, and Lando. At the end of Empire, but it's not entirely hopeless, because we're gonna have I'm gonna grab Tommy this the kid's perspective, but we're going to do a spoiler review on Friday. But there is I like Doctor Strange's role in this movie.
I gotta say, it's like one of the things that made me chuckle was like with Robert Downey Jr. and what's his name?
I'm almost calls Iron Man a douchebag.
Oh wow! No, I was just thinking of like. There's probably going to be a great picture of like, on the internet of, what is the name of the guy that plays Doctor Strange?
That would be Cumberbatch.
So, him and Robert Downey Jr. being paired up as the two Sherlocks.
Oh, that would be interesting. I'm sure there were some jokes like that. I actually saw a video. Totally looked this up. If we can share it to our channel, we should totally. But there's this video where there's Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, and they're basically having this fight over the last donut. And Chris Evans walks up, and Downey's eating this donut, and he's like, "Is that the last donut with the red, white, and blue sprinkles?" He's like, "I think it is." Munch, munch, munch. You know what I said would happen. And while this is happening, the Scarlet Witch is in the background watching this, and it's like so serious and so it's the funniest, just about the funniest thing. I'll have to show you this when we get done with the video, but it's hilarious. Hey, we're about 29 minutes into this thing, so we probably should start wrapping it up.
Okay.
we talked about everything and nothing at all.
That's what we do best.
Yeah. So I'd say, aside from the one thing that bothered me at the beginning, right? I would probably call this a perfect movie, and it is. I absolutely loved it, and I think that point that bothered me is something that cannot hope but be addressed in the sequel. Because more than likely some elements of the original Infinity Gauntlet story, like it's probably, a lot of people think it's going to end similarly, like with Nebula being an important character like she was in the comics, and the set of circumstances is very different. But I think I could see that, and you know, I'm definitely gonna rush out to buy this one on DVD when it comes out. Like I haven't got Justice League yet because I'm just like, do I really want that movie? And I haven't got Force Away or Last Jedi yet. I will get it eventually, but not for $20. But this movie, my God, I'd probably pay $50 to get this DVD. I want to see this movie again and again and again. I want to dissect it.
So for me, first act was a little on the slow end, but I didn't really have too much of a problem with it because it's enough of, for somebody that's not too familiar or needs kind of a recap. Mm-hmm. The first act really just does good of like, okay, everybody assemble, everybody basically come together, mm-hmm. everybody that needs to be within this movie is getting set up for the second act, and then or at least by the second act finally comes up and they're going to be in the third act. Mm-hmm. The middle part of the film gets into really just like the great interaction of the various characters. Like, okay, this is their various plans. Succeed or fail, this is what they're getting ready for.
It was so smooth and seamless.
Yes, and it felt like
more than 60 characters.
Yeah, and the fact of like the jumping around and basically going of, here's a tidbit of like, okay, what's happening over here on Earth, mm-hmm. here's what's happening out in space, here's what's happening on this planet, and so forth, and like the interaction. And it didn't feel like when they traveled, when they went up, when they met with each other, it didn't feel like, okay, how did you basically get to this point? Mm-hmm. Did you just railroad these player characters in with another group? No, it actually felt
like it was.
Yeah, it felt very organic, and mm-hmm. that was like so that's the point of like me bringing up like the second act is mm-hmm. that it really felt organic, and it felt like it was the payoff. Mm-hmm. Like, this whole movie was the payoff of like once again, just saying about Marvel's hard work. In the third act, I definitely loved it. I mean, it was like mm-hmm. the way that it ended. I enjoy this because they didn't pull punches, and the way that they ended it was just like, somebody that has read the comics, somebody that has like looked into a lot of the lore, mm-hmm. And whatnot. I knew that there was going to be a certain level of like Woody has been going on about the death and the various mm-hmm. other stuff. I knew that there was,
yeah.
But I didn't feel like they were going to pull. I thought they were going to pull punches. I thought like there was going to be this studio thing. It's like there was some stuff that
pull punches, but you didn't notice it because it was so well executed.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it was just that flow of the story. Mm-hmm. It was enough of like, okay, there wasn't a part where it was like enough at 3 a.m. I'm going to like go, huh. I'm looking at my fridge and, I think about like the movie that I just watched. Yeah. I wasn't even thinking about the escape pods, but I mean, yeah. It's like, for the most part, there wasn't anything else that was just so blatantly like, oh my God, like other films where you just go, that made no sense. Why didn't you pull out the gun from the drawer from the first act?
Somehow you reminded me of this thing, and then we got to wrap this up.
Yes.
So there's this scene, and this isn't spoiling anything in the movie, but there's basically this scene where Captain America's Secret Avengers, right? Because that's him, and he's got his team, that he's running around doing counterterrorism with, and if you've seen the tie-in comic, so it's not a secret who's with him. But they basically come to the Avengers compound and they meet up with War Machine, and War Machine's the only one there at the time. And he's on the phone on the hologram phone, the Star Wars hologram phone with General Thunderbolt Ross, who's the main Hulk antagonist. And it's like, and Ross is like, oh hey, look at that, there's the world, the criminals. And he's like, "Hey, we're here to help. There's some shit going down. We're on your side." And he's like, "Thank you." He's like, and he goes to the War Machine and is like, "Arrest them." And there are 5 Avengers. And War Machine's not even in his suit. And like, what an idiot. But yet he's playing to his character, but it's like, oh my god, like, are you kidding? What the hell is War Machine going to do, even if he was in the suit? Okay, against, I mean, seriously? I mean, oh my god. Anyhow, but okay, so we need to wrap this up. So I 2 thumbs up then.
Yeah, this is a.
You actually have to put your thumb up.
This is 6 Infinity Stones worth of a great movie.
So we give it 2 thumbs up, and a pile of space junk. So, all right, go see the movie.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Stay nerdy, friends.
Yes.